Welcome into a new era here on IE Sports Radio. My name is Darryl Kinsey Jr. welcoming you to the inaugural episode of Apex to Asphalt. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We got a lot to get to tonight. Sports cars are coming up with the Rolex 24. Formula One is breaking cover and a whole lot more. We got to pay some bills. We'll talk about all of that on the other side of this break. Sit tight.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome to this inaugural episode of Apex to Asphalt. I am Darryl Kinsey Jr. Chris will be joining us next week, and it is time to get started in our brand new era here. We have a lot to get to in this next hour. I want to thank you all for joining us from the extra mile to here. We've got a lot in the works to make this show our own between myself and Chris, as we move on into new highways. And I can't wait to get started, and hopefully a lot of the plans we have come to fruition. We'll see later on this year. So we're going to get started tonight with everything you may have missed since the last time we were on when it comes to NASCAR, and we will start with the results of the NASCAR lawsuit, which ended in a settlement, which a lot of us thought was going to happen. We were not expecting it to take as long as it did. Thank you, Larry. He's joining us there in the chat. But we did get a resolution that I think makes all sides happy. NASCAR did have to make the charters permanent. The teams get a lot more say into what goes on with the money. They get more splits from the TV revenue, and everything is positive on the team side. However, if you're looking at this from NASCAR's point of view, they have a lot to work on as far as getting the teams and the fans back on their side. There was a lot of dirty laundry that got aired during this lawsuit. We had the Steve Phelps text messages come out. We'll talk about that in just a minute. We had a lot of the comments coming out where NASCAR was basically trying to take the sport into a NFL type route where they basically got rid of the independent teams and franchised everything. And it really left a poor taste in everyone's mouth, other than the fact that it looks like Honda is coming to NASCAR. That was the only positive that I can say came out of this. So as we're... Excuse me, thought I had to sneeze. As we're going into 2026, a lot of apologies and kumbayas need to come from NASCAR to make this right. Steve O'Donnell has mentioned that in press conferences, that they have to do a better job of gelling with their garage. Fox exec apparently told them that they needed to get the garage back. We saw a great start of that when the chase format got announced, but a lot more of getting the band back together has to happen for the teams and NASCAR to come back together and make a sport that at the end of the day is for the fans, because us fans don't want to be talking about lawsuits. There's a lot of individuals bigger than I in NASCAR media that now have a lot of Pacer bills they have to pay after getting all those court documents that went down. And believe me, I've used Pacer before. Thankfully, in a past job, I was able to stay under that threshold of money that you have to pay them to see documents and print documents off. Those bills can get pretty high. So hopefully we don't have to go through that ever again, and NASCAR can go smooth sailing into the future, because it was going into a direction that was unsustainable. It was a lot of adversarial actions between the sanctioning body and the teams, to the point where a lot of people were concerned that we were going towards a stock car split. And for the youngins that don't know why that's a bad thing, the current IndyCar iteration is still only probably a quarter of the fan base that was there in its heyday during the 90s, when Champ Car was the number one motorsport in America, even bigger than NASCAR. But then the open wheel split happened, and CART went one way. The teams that wanted to stay with the Indianapolis 500 stayed with the IRL, and it came down to the same situation that NASCAR was dealing with. How and who gets the money? Now, in a perfect world, everybody would just split the money and we wouldn't talk about it. But we're not in a perfect world, and we know everybody wants to get all the dollars and short the other guy the dollar. That's just how it works around here. And that is almost what we saw in NASCAR go to its logical completion, which is the two sides split and everything falls apart. Now, we do see two top fuel organizations right now in NHRA and IHRA. That is not the same as the split. That is another organization being born from the ashes, which I'm not sure if this is a roundabout way to get prime real estate for data centers or an actual factual motorsport series. Time will tell, but my problem with the IHRA is they're spending way too much money for a series that just started. And I don't care how much money the guy running it has. The best way to get a small fortune in motorsports is to start with a big one, and he is showing it in record time. So keep your eyes open on IHRA. Hopefully everything goes well there. That is our hope. The other major rule set announcement for this year was that the chase is back and the playoffs are gone. At the end of 26 races this year, 16 drivers based on points. There is no more win and you're in. Based on points alone will run for the championship under the final 10 races. Points and stages are going to mean everything now, especially now that the winner of each race will get 55 points instead of 40. That means you can get a maximum of 86 points at the end of the race, which means the winner of the race, no matter what, will be the driver that gets the most points at the end of the day. That is going to change a lot about the racing. You're going to see wins matter, but you're also going to see the stages matter. Because if you can get a lot of stage points, even if you don't win, you can still lessen that blow to the guy that wins the race going into the chase. Thank God I don't have to say playoffs anymore. But it's going to make it to where fans actually feel that every race matters. Now, every race did matter in the playoffs. However, it didn't feel like it with the eliminations and the resets and everybody starting from zero with the points. Now, there's only one reset. 1 to 26 and then 26 to 36. And if you remember from the old chase format, if you got a bad start in those first couple of races, you were done. And you're going to see that come back now, where if you are not doing well in the first couple of races, your playoffs are over. Sorry, your chase is over. However, at the same time, if you get off to a great start in those first couple of races, you might be able to run away and hide, and everyone is running for second. At the end of the day, whoever does that in this system, they earned it, because it's all about the points. First to get you there, then the points to keep you up there. Now, the best thing about this is now underdog wins can just be underdog wins again. We don't have to have the week-long arguments about whether or not Shane Van Gisbergen deserves to be in the playoffs. We don't have to have this argument like when Harrison Burton won. The feel-good story of him winning in the Wood Brothers, him finally getting that win even though he was going to end up leaving that car. All of that got forgotten because people spent the entire time after that whining about whether or not he was taking a playoff spot from someone that was more deserving. Now it doesn't matter. If you're not 1 through 16 by the end of race 26, don't want to hear it. Doesn't matter. You had all season to get into that top 16 spot. Now you can't do it. Now you cannot rely on Daytona at the end of the year to get you into the playoffs if you had a crap season. Now it's going to be about those drivers that have had a decent run all year, or not even a decent run, a good, consistent run all year, getting into that last 10 shootout to win the championship. And now there will still be complainers. There are still people apparently calling themselves the 36ers now. I don't know what's going on with that. At this point, I don't care. The full season championship is not coming back. TV doesn't want it. There is a perceived drop-off with viewership when there's a full 36 race championship, especially going into football. They want something to sell to get some of the audience to turn away from the NFL. That is why they want this chase format, or NBC specifically wants a playoff or chase format. But as I said, two of the big proponents that were in the room when they made this announcement were Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Mark Martin, two of the staunchest all 36/36er/ whatever you want to call them, announcers or proponents, sorry. They were able to buy into the return of the chase because it is a happy medium. And I do think this happy medium is going to go a great way for us to rebuilding some of what we've lost, because now the guys that are consistent, they get the shine every week instead of somebody that may have finished 21st who just lucked themselves into a spot in the playoffs. Shout out to Austin Dillon at Richmond the last couple of years. And I will say on Twitter and in the fan base and in the industry, there's a lot of positivity that we have not seen in a while that is now being shown by everyone going into this season. Everyone is excited to go back in, and we're going to be points racing again. And that's going to be great for everybody, including us, the fans, and us, the podcasters, hopefully. We also had Ram. They begin their first season this year, next month in Daytona, the return of Ram trucks, which we hope is the vanguard of the return of Dodge into NASCAR as a whole. A little bit of controversy with that brand right now because all 5 of those trucks for the first 3 races will be guaranteed starting spots. Now, that will expand the field to about 41 trucks, I believe, and they will not get the prize money. They will only get points if they have to go in that route. Now, there has been some controversy in some of the teams, Frankie Muniz among them, that's announced that this puts them in an unequal playing field because now the Ram trucks can focus just on race setup and not have to compromise themselves by doing qualifying runs during practice. A very short practice session that they have. Now, this could all be changed if NASCAR gave everybody a 1-hour practice session like they have been doing and have shown that they can do and still do qualifying right after. But that is a whole nother story for a whole nother day. To be honest, I don't think the Ram trucks are not going to want to go that way. And the reason NASCAR is doing this is because they're trying to avoid a Michael Waltrip Racing in 2007 situation where you had a new OEM with a struggling team that could barely get those cars into the race. It is not a good look, and especially now where a lot of these dollars to go racing from these manufacturers that are being demanded to be more environmentally conscious thanks to A, the fuel regulations, and B, investors. It is a tough sell to go motorsports racing. It's a much harder sell when you go racing and none of your cars are making the show. So I understand why they did it, but Kaulig Racing is also a top shelf team. They may not have shown it ever since the Cup expansion, but them stepping down from Xfinity and going straight into truck and their one cup team, or their couple of cup teams, they have shown that they've got speed. And I think they are not going to need those provisional spots. I think they'll be able to get in by speed alone and not have to worry about it. And besides, nobody wants to get back there and you still have to try to come through the field. And it is harder more than ever for a team to start in the back and make their way to the front. The racing is too compact. The teams are too close together on speed. You could get trapped back there and get trapped a lap down quickly. And nobody wants to just ride around to say they made the field. They want to race to win. So I think you're going to see the Ram trucks focus on that qualifying effort because they want to not just compete, they want to win. They want to lead the field to green. And the way you do that is qualify up front. So I think you're going to see them being aggressive in qualifying with at least some of the trucks and probably all of them. Because at the end of the day, it's a lot better to say you start on the pole than just say in that first press release you competed in your first race. And as we get ready to go to break, we would be remiss if we didn't give our heartfelt condolences to the Biffle family shortly after we went off the air to end the season in December. Tragedy struck on December 16th, 2025. December 18th, 2025, where Greg Biffle's plane crashed carrying his entire family and 3 others. It was an unfortunate day, and recently they did have the memorial for Greg Biffle and his family, and Craig Wadsworth, Dennis Dutton, and his son Jack Dutton, who are also on the plane. And it was a hard watch, and every time I see this incident, I find myself tearing up because I think about their son, Ryder. He was just 5 years old. He did not get a chance to even see what his life was going to be. There was conversations he was going to follow Greg into the family business of racing, but unfortunately, it was not to be because of a 1 in a million accident. And it really shows the fragility of life. But Greg Biffle was a great man in retirement. Everyone remembers what he did after Hurricane Harvey when he got in his little private helicopter and was really the eyes eyes and ears for first responders, guiding them to where people needed help, dropping off supplies of his own to people in those first few days when everything was organizing to come down from the government. And he did a lot of good those days and on those flights. And it really showed his humanitarian spirit. Greg was a fierce competitor, an even better human, and he will be missed. And as we go to break, give a thought to Greg Biffle, his wife Christina, son Ryder and Emma, and Dennis Dutton, Jack Dutton, and Craig Wadsworth, the 7 who lost their lives in a tragic plane crash in December. We're going to take a break. I'll be right back.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Well, good thing I was muted there, but we are back here on Apex to Asphalt here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I accidentally said the old name. It's going to take a little bit to get out of the system. But hey, we're back, and we're here with Formula One conversation as we are getting ready for the 2026 season. And there's a lot of conjecture going on right now in Formula One because obviously we don't know all that's going on with the engines and who's going to have what speed and who's going to be slow and who's going to do what and who may retire. There's a lot of conjecture going on. The main issue in the Formula One sphere right now is whether or not the Mercedes engines are legal. Now, going into this season, the engines have changed from an 18.1 compression ratio to a 16-to-1 compression ratio. That change was made by Formula One. However, there is rumors that Mercedes, at least Mercedes and maybe Red Bull / Ford, have found a way to expand the engines during running conditions to get above that 16-to-1 compression ratio. `Why is that important? Well, the only time they can test the engines for compression ratio is during or after the race / practice / whenever they want to do this test. The issue is the engines are cold. When they are hot, when they're running, metal expands. So they're able to get supposedly up to 0.4 of a second, which could be a lot of conjecture. Hey, Echo! Good to see Echo Bit again. I'll be joining them again with the Crux Cup this year, and we will hopefully have the Anzia Crux Cup preview show again. So we'll have to talk about that offline. But don't want to put Echo on the spot, but back when it comes to Formula One, we're going into 2026, and there's this big conjecture about the engines because it could earn the Mercedes teams an extra 17 seconds if this is accurate. It is such a big deal that next week they're going to have, they being FIA and the teams, are going to have a conversation about this. Audi, Ferrari, and Honda are said to be staunchly against. Red Bull is neutral, and clearly Mercedes is not going to vote against their own interest. If Red Bull is able to be swayed to the side, so Red Bull / Ford, I would try to call them Red Bull Ford going forward when it comes to that engine program. If Red Bull Ford is able to be swayed towards the side of Honda, Ferrari, and Audi, who's also coming in this year, they'll be able to ban the Mercedes engine this year on regulatory grounds. That would throw Mercedes into a tailspin this season, because then they would have to put together a completely different engine in about a month or so. Effectively, you would be parking at least six cars from the Formula One championship. On the other hand, if those engines are allowed, and if they allow the speed boost that they're being advertised, you're basically going to relegate everyone that's not in a Mercedes and maybe Red Bull Ford into not showing up this year. Because you will have truly a two-tiered system between the Mercedes cars / the Red Bull Ford cars and Ferrari, Honda, and Audi. However, that's even if the Mercedes engine will start. Because there are rumors that when Mercedes went to put this cheated up engine into the car, it didn't start. Don't know why, but they couldn't get it to turn over. But that just goes back to the fact that everything right now is conjecture in Formula One. Everybody is guessing. Everybody thinks this guy has the lineup. This guy has the secret sauce, and everybody else is going to get blown out of the water. It is a new regulations format. That's what makes this so exciting, because we don't know what everybody's going to do. Even when we get down through the shakedown, which comes up next week, which will not be advertised, it's basically going to be a series of private tests for all the teams to get together and run their cars for the first time and get the cobwebs out. Then they'll go to Bahrain for the traditional open test session that we will see before we go to Australia to start the new era of Formula One. It's going to be interesting to see how these engines roll off, how they compete, and whether or not Mercedes will be able to run their engine the way that it's currently set up. And the question that I have is that if the engines are allowed, and if they do blow everybody out the water the way they are, who is the team that's going to try to legislate this and try to get this championship thrown out? Because it's going to feel a bit unfair, because at the letter of the law, Mercedes is not following the letter of the law, because the engine is supposed to be at all times 16-1 compression ratio. And if all the other teams have done the work to remain at 16-1 compression ratio, it is completely unfair and completely illegal for you to make an engine that doesn't do that and call it a loophole. It's not a loophole. That is cheating. If you are messing with the engines, the fuel, or the tires, you are cheating. It is not a performance advantage. And it should not be allowed, because if that's the case, why even have the rule? Just let everybody do whatever compression ratio they want. It's going to be interesting, and I know Chris will have words about that next week when we continue and get into the preview of the season. But there's a lot that Formula One's going to need to talk about next week. But one of the big rumors as far as retirement goes around Lewis Hamilton. As we all know, he had a terrible season in 2025. Not trying to claim 2026, but the rumors about Ferrari are not great, Ferrari fans. And it's looking like it may be a rough season again. The rumor around the paddock is that if Ferrari doesn't get it together, Lewis Hamilton is done. He's going to retire and kiss the sport goodbye. I don't want to see not my GOAT, the GOAT, go out sad like that. But the problem is Ferrari hasn't been good, and Larry B there saying I'm pissed at Ferrari. Everyone is pissed at Ferrari because last year was a disappointment. Last year to say it was a disappointment is an understatement. That was probably the worst season I have seen from a team I have rooted for in quite some time. And Ferrari had expectations, and they did not meet them. It is so bad that the rumor going into this season, not only that Lewis Hamilton might retire, Charles Leclerc might leave. If they are not competing for a championship this year, Leclerc may leave and go to another team. I think that would be the greatest slap in the face to Ferrari, that they lost a guy who lied to his father on his deathbed that he got the Ferrari seat before he actually got the Ferrari seat. That is how badly Charles Leclerc wanted to run for this team and bring them a championship. The guy that has carried Jules Bianchi's memory with him every time he straps into the car for Ferrari may go to greener pastures if they can't figure it out this year. Ferrari has a lot of work to do. And I hope for their sakes that team is on 10 out of 10 status going into this season, because if it is another dumpster fire, the Dallas Cowboys of Formula One are going to have to be looked at a lot differently than they are now as far as being a top flight Formula One team. And Larry brings up a good point. You can't say Lewis Hamilton isn't great. And here's the thing, not even Lewis Hamilton. Look at the world drivers champions that have come through that organization in the last 20 years. Sebastian Vettel, 4-time champion, couldn't get it done. Fernando Alonso, two-time champion, couldn't get it done. Kimi Räikkönen, a past champion, actually in that seat, only got one, was unable to get two. There are so many drivers, world championship winning drivers, that have come through that team, and Ferrari still has not succeeded. I don't think it's the drivers that's the problem. That organization, similar to the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL, have this air that they're better than everybody else, so they don't have to work as hard as everybody else. They have this narcissistic attitude, and you saw that when the CEO, who, by the way, I didn't even know this guy existed before last year, came out and told the drivers, basically, shut up and drive. Well, they would shut up and drive if your car was better, Ferrari. Guess what? It's not. They have a lot to work on to return to being a top flight team. Because right now, a lot of Ferrari fans and a lot of Dallas Cowboys fans have an unfortunate comparison. Or not comparison, sorry. They have an unfortunate similarity. Next year is always their year. Going into this year, we are seeing a couple of new teams come onto the grid. Audi bought the Sauber team, and they are now going to be on the grid as a factory effort. And Cadillac is going to be joining the grid as the 11th team. The wick has already been turned up on the GM-Ford rivalry, with Ford coming out and basically saying that Cadillac really isn't a true Cadillac effort since they're using Ferrari engines for the first 2 years. In 2028, they will be bringing their own engine. And assuming that there aren't GM people on the grid. Meanwhile, Cadillac is saying that Ford really isn't interested in running in it for the long haul, and that if they struggle, they're just going to leave. As an American, I love this. The Ford-Chevy rivalry is back. Or not even back, actually. It has been digivolved into a global rivalry in the greatest engineering competition on the planet. I live for this. I am so excited for this war of words between Ford and Chevy, because those two organizations do not like each other. And it's awesome, because we don't get rivalries like that in motorsports that often. These two organizations hate each other. Since the 60s, it has been Ford versus Chevy, Mustang versus Camaro, Corvette versus Mustang, GT40 versus Corvette. All of these cars, even in NASCAR, Taurus versus Impala, SS versus Fusion. Now it's where it's Camaro versus Mustang again. It is such an exciting time in American motorsports when these two teams are these two titans of our industry are going at each other. And now they're going at each other in Formula One. It's catty, it's petty. I love it. Cannot wait to see how these teams snipe at each other in 2026. Hopefully, Cadillac can do a Haas where they're competing in the points, so then it can get really spicy. That's what I'm excited for the most out of this season. But you've got two good drivers there. Not two good drivers. Two guys that, if it wasn't for their teammates, would be world champions in Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas. Now they're together on a team that is fully behind them and not just pushing one car in front of the other, Red Bull. It's going to be really nice to see how these two coexist or don't coexist with each other. Hopefully it is as hateful as I think it's going to be, as long as nobody gets wrecked on the track, because we can't do that in Formula One. If it's NASCAR, yeah, you can put each other in the wall, but it's an exciting time if you're a Formula One fan. The shakedown starts next week. I'll give you the remaining car livery releases, as Haas broke cover today. A beautiful livery for Haas. The remaining programs, and we'll get into more of these next week when Chris is back with us. But we've got a lot of cars breaking cover. Last of the cars to be breaking free right before the shakedown. Actually, this week, before we go into the shakedown next week. And then after that, we will be into the preseason tests and getting ready to run the Formula One season for 2026. So we're going to take our last break of the night. When we come back, we're going to get into the Twice Around the Clock Classic, the race that kind of launched my career into podcasting, the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Can't wait to get this one started. We'll talk about it on the other side of this break here on the Extra Mile on iSports Radio. Your direct feed. I said it. Apex to Asphalt here on iSports Radio. Your direct feed for all that is sports.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon. But it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clinking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. iSports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong, Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
Welcome back. It's Apex to Asphalt here on IU Sports Radio, and we're on the final curve heading into the wrap-up of this inaugural episode. I want to thank the 87 folks that have tuned in this week to check out the first episode. We hope you come back next week. And hey, get onto youtube.com/IU Sports Radio and get in on the chat. We've had EchoBit there, the LB53, and Freddie B Sports all talking with us this week on motorsports, and I hope you guys join the rest of the week. Freddie B, our IndyCar insider, he'll be joining us closer onto the season, so we'll get to talk to him once again. Also the host of the Racelets podcast. So for those of you that love IndyCar racing, make sure to give that a follow as well. And as I'm scrolling Twitter during the break, John Newby, who is a senior writer at Savage Ventures covering NASCAR and auto news, came out with something on what the conversation was like to get to the chase with NASCAR. And he got a comment from Mike Ford, who does racing communications for NASCAR, and said that the three formats that were discussed by the playoff committee was the chase, going back to the 36 race season-long championship format, and the 3-3-4 elimination model that got leaked early on into the proceedings. According to Ford, the 3-3-4 model pretty much was dead on arrival. It didn't fit the, quote, elevator explanation model that they were looking for, and it had the eliminations that everybody was tired of. So it really came down to the 36 full season championship and the 10 race chase. There were some conversations about ditching stages, but not many. And it really came back to stages not really being the problem. Really, the stage caution is the problem. And I think that's the next thing that NASCAR needs to explore. But it really looks like the elimination format for NASCAR was never really going to be a thing. So now that we get into the final segment of the day, the Rolex 24 preview. This is one of my favorite races of the year. If you've known me by now, you know I love endurance racing because it fills my ADHD heart with glee because it's racing all day long. I get up in the morning, there's a race. I go out in the afternoon, there's a race. I lay down and go to bed, hey, they're still racing. I get up the next day, I get to watch the end of the race. It's awesome. And the Rolex 24 among them is one of the greatest endurance races in the world. It is a 60-car field twice around the clock in 4 different classes, Hypercar, LMP2, and the 2 GT3-based classes, GTD Pro and GTD. It is a race nowadays with the class splits and bringing everybody together on the restarts. It is a sprint race for 24 hours. Everybody has to push 10 tenths, really 11 tenths from the start of the green flag to the checkers. Now, last year, I got the esteemed opportunity to go to that race. The esteemed privilege of going to that race, and I loved it. I cannot wait to go back. Hopefully in a couple of years with, at that point, will be my wife. So I'll be getting married in June, and I at least will not be on the show for a little while in June I'll be getting married, but we got to go to that race, and we got to see a lot of great action. We got to see the fireworks at night, the cars making their way around the racetrack as the light fell. We got to see the Lamborghini being worked on before they decided to park that car for the event, and it was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed myself. going into this season is no different. IMSA puts on some of the best racing of the year. It's got 4 classes. They're all tight as far as competition, and they all go 10/10ths. They got a little too rowdy last season. I was there where Corvette and BMW got into a shoving match, which was really the start of what ended up being, at the end of the season, a big crackdown on in-race behavior by IMSA, because the argy-bargy was getting a little too much, and IMSA had to pull it back. And we saw the start of that with the Corvette v. BMW kerfuffle that started during this race. We saw Porsche take the big win with Penske. Ford won their first race with the Mustang there. AW Racing got their GT3 season off to a start with their Corvette, with winning the race, which ended up leading to them getting the automatic GT-AM spot from IMSA into the Rolex 24 this year. A lot of great storylines get started for the entire season right here in Daytona. And in just 6 days, they'll be taking the green flag to go again. We'll go class by class here quickly. In GTP, Porsche will be entering a new era as just having a factory class in IMSA. Proton Porsche will be the only team that has a GTP hypercar, and really the only privateer hypercar at this point, which unfortunately has shown that one of the pillars that GTP was formed on really hasn't worked out, and that's been getting more privateer teams to step up into GTP competition. Now, he had that a little bit with Hertz running the running the Porsches as a privateer team to to Porsche 2 years ago. They have upgraded to being the factory effort for the WEC and Cadillac, but that now leaves no privateer teams really in the WEC, and we've only got JDC Miller, JDC Miller being the only privateer team in IMSA. And the other manufacturers really have not embraced selling their cars as privateer efforts. We know we have AF Corse that runs I don't want to say independent Ferrari. It's basically a part of the Ferrari factory effort, just with a yellow coat of paint. You've got Wheelin, which is really just an extension of the Cadillac team. Michael Shank Racing, which is just Acura here in IMSA. So there really are no teams that are privateer, and the main thing just comes back to cost. It is very expensive to go racing. It is very expensive to go prototype racing. And why would you spend all that money to run in hypercar when you can stay in LMP2 and not be subject to the whims of the manufacturers, or just run GT3, where you can throw a rock and buy a GT3 car and go racing? It is the far more economical option for an individual with a lot of money that would want to go racing in sports cars, which would be GT3. And I don't think you can beat the value that GT3 brings, because you buy one car and you can run literally all over the world if you wanted to, compared to hypercar, where you really just have IMSA and the WEC, and those are championships that are tough to run full seasons on and have full sponsorship dollars for. Where in GT3 you can run the sprint version with the VP Fuels championship in IMSA. You can go and run what was the Block Pond Sprint Series. Now it's the World GT3 Championship. You can go and run in Europe and race GT3s. You can go to Asia or Australia, or the AWS World Challenge, excuse me. You can go run that series. You can go in Europe and run the European GT3 Championship. you can do all those things with one GT3 car or two GT3 cars and go run all those championships. You can go in Australia and run them. China has a GT3 championship now. If you just go on GT World now, you can watch all the championships that can run GT3 machinery. And that's where a lot of your privateer teams continue to stay. Because no matter how advantageous you try to make GTP, if the manufacturers are not going to make cars available, or they're not going to make cars available at an advantageous price point, or at the whims of a CEO who may or may not like racing, given what's going on with Porsche and them trying to get back into the defense industry, and God only knows what that means for their racing department. It's tough compared to the certainty of GT3 racing or LMP2 racing at that matter. So it's tough, but looking at GTP, it's going to be the same 11 cars that we've seen run for the championship. Aston Martin will be running a full season this year, so they'll be getting their first crack at the Rolex 24 this year. To everybody that's going to be down there and listening to the Aston Martin make its first runs in anger at Daytona, I'm jealous. I'm very, very jealous, but have fun. In LMP2, Spike the Dragon in AO Racing reigned supreme last year in the IMSA Championship, but there are challengers abounding from Inter Europol, United Autosports, Riley. All of those teams are coming up. TDS Racing as well are all coming together to battle for what is always an extremely competitive LMP2 championship. That is a class, basically a one-make class with Oreca chassis, but it's going to be a category that what we saw last year is the leader will be able to spread their wings a little bit on the other teams if you can get out there and stay out of trouble. But the nighttime is going to be the right time where you're going to see a lot of issues because those GT3 drivers that don't have a lot of experience or no experience are going to be in the car, and it's going to be a concern for a lot of people if they are out there. And usually we see LMP2s and GT3s come together all the time. In GTD, kind of like what I said during the Formula One discussion, Ford versus Chevy is thrown into high gear in the pro category. Really, Chevy versus the world in GTD Pro at Pratt & Miller, because they were pissed at BMW. They're always going to be pissed at Ford because Ford. They got into it with AO Racing at some point last year. Really, Corvette likes to pick a fight, and they like to get their nose dirty. And that's going to make for an extremely entertaining GTD Pro category. While in GTD, Windward Racing has been the model of consistency. They won the championship going away last year. GTD AM is always going to be a category that is always wide open because the amateur drivers and the fact that the AM drivers have to start the race. They qualify the car and start the race in all of IMSA racing, including the Rolex 24. And that category usually has a long list of who the heck is this drivers in it when we get to the nighttime, which means the driving standards are going to be vast between all of the cars in GTD when we get into the nighttime, particularly for that amateur category. And for your faster cars, your pros, your LMP2s, your GTPs, they're going to have to be cognizant of who's in the car at all times and make adjustments to that. And the car that may have given them that spot in the International Horseshoe a couple hours ago may not have that same driver and may not know about that courtesy going into that corner this time. It could cause some crashes and it could cause some hurt feelings. And it's going to be fun as a fan to watch what happens. But until then, you can watch the race on Peacock all day long on IMSA. You can also watch qualifying and the Michelin Pilot Challenge races on IMSA. On the on Peacock here in the United States. I'll get you some event details here when everything will be on. Let's try to find you a schedule. So everything will get started on Thursday. We'll have WeatherTech Championship qualifying that will run on YouTube, IMSA TV, and Peacock. Race 1 of the Mazda MX-5 Cup will be from 5:10 to 6 p.m. on YouTube. Please watch that. Please check out the Mazda MX-5 Cup. It is incredible, and you're not going to want to miss it. On Friday, 9:55 a.m., we'll have Race 2 of the Mazda MX-5 Cup, followed by the BMW M Endurance Challenge at Daytona. It'll be available globally on Peacock, on YouTube, and IMSA TV. And then on Saturday, starting at 1:30 on Peacock, the Rolex 24 at Daytona. You'll be able to watch it all the way through on Peacock. It'll be on NBC from 1:30 to 2:30 on Saturday. You can watch the entire race on Peacock or YouTube if you're outside the United States, or IMSA TV if you're outside the United States as well. And Sunday, from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m., the end of the Rolex 24 will be on NBC. And if you're watching on Peacock, you just stay on your Peacock browser until the end of the race at 2 p.m. You will probably have to switch over to one of the parts that they will have it up for recording purposes. So that will do it for this edition of Apex to Asphalt, the inaugural episode of Apex to Asphalt. We'll be back next week. Chris will be joining us as well. He's getting his streaming setup all ready for next year, and just welcomed the new baby into the family. So congratulations, Chris, on the new child. Baby and mom are doing great. They're home now, and I got to see the kid, and it is through pictures, and he is a stinker. He is a cutie. So I guess you can call him the second unofficial IE Sports Radio baby, if we want to go by there. But that'll do it for this edition of Apex to Asphalt. I am Darryl Kinsey Jr. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and we will see you next Monday, 8 p.m. here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Good night, everybody.